Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Podcast Workflows, the podcast where I teach you how to improve your processes and workflows to save 12 plus hours per week. My name is Joe Casabona. I'm a podcast systems coach. I've been podcasting for over a decade, and I've built my entire life around automation. Today, I'm going to tell you how I prepped 9+ pieces of content in 4.5 hours. So in preparation for a recent vacation that I am back from, I recorded and wrote a bunch of content to schedule in my absence. And so I want to share with you kind of how I churned out these 9 pieces of content over the course of about half of a work day. And so what we got was 3 YouTube videos, 3 podcast episodes, 1 blog post, maybe 2 blog posts, 1 live stream, 1 short form video, and then the audio of that live stream was also republished to a podcast feed. So really it's like 4 podcast episodes. So what is that? 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 pieces, 9 plus, right? Okay. So, and then here are the tools that I used. I will link to all of this in the show notes for this episode, which you can find in the description for your podcast or over at show.podcastworkflows.com. Okay. So the tools I used are Ecamm Live, the Elgato Prompter, Logic Pro, ScreenFlow, Isotope RX, Capsho and Cast Magic, and then Transistor and RSS.com. So here's how it worked. I went very video first for this process. And so for each video, I wrote basically, I didn't script it, but I did a basic outline of what I wanted to talk about. And then for each video, I set up a number of scenes in Ecamm Live for lower thirds, nice layouts, for screen sharing, and more. So, I have a bunch of these scenes set up on my Stream Deck, which then I can easily switch between. And the reason that I'm able to do that, or the reason I like to do that, is because it allows me to edit quickly in a few different ways. Because I am doing the editing for these videos. I don't have a video editor. I do have an audio editor, but because of the shorter time span for these solo pieces of content, I didn't use him. I'll talk about that in a minute. But using Ecamm Live specifically allows me to, I don't have to add overlays in my video editor or like do any kind of crafty editing. I can pause the recording and pick up where I left off. So if I need to stop for some reason, I don't need to edit a whole bunch of stuff out or reshoot. It all comes in one video, so I don't need to combine a bunch of videos either. I also get the video, the audio, my main camera source, and separate audio for each track. That's me, any sound effects, and my guests when I use Ecamm Live. So I can use them as much as needed without having to reshoot or manually separate anything. That is especially handy for the single camera view, right? When I switch to scenes, that means that my camera is partially obscured, but Ecamm Live gives me just the raw camera feed so I can use that as needed. So it makes getting the assets easy. It reduces my editing time. And I can also just get the clean audio, which means I can usually repurpose just straight up the audio without having to separate it from the video. Now, once the content is recorded, that's the video, the audio, and everything, I import the audio only into Logic Pro, where I have an audio processing chain. This chain relies heavily on Isotope RX to add breath control, mouth declicking, and then clean up and boost my audio. This usually gets done with one, like, hey, learn this audio and now apply all of the filters. I export that, and then I replace the audio in ScreenFlow with the newly cleaned up and processed audio. If I need to make any cuts, I will do it there so that I can easily sync the video and the audio, and then I will export the video and I will export the audio. I'll also use ScreenFlow's markers to add chapters because that's a lot easier to do. as I'm editing. And then I'll upload the video to YouTube and the audio to my podcast host. In most cases right now, that's Transistor, but I'm using RSS.com, which, full disclosure, I'm an RSS.com evangelist, and I am using RSS.com for one that I'll talk about in a minute. So that is video and audio. I did that 3 times, right? I created 3 different videos and exported the audio. Those were podcast episodes that I just included a video component for, which I'm also doing for this, right? So you can watch this on YouTube right now if you want, or if you want to keep listening in the audio feed. It really is an audio first podcast. I'm not really doing anything visually interesting. That's different for the 3 things in podcasting, because I do have some visuals there. Or I bring up the article and kind of we can read along to it. But for most of these where I'm just narrating, it's me talking to the camera. And that's the other important, I use the Elgato prompter so that I can have what I want to say on the screen, and a confidence monitor, which is so I can see the screen that's being recorded, and maintain eye contact with the camera and therefore with you. So I'm not always off reading from something else. Everything I'm reading from when I am reading is on the Elgato prompter. Okay, so now to create the written assets, I will use Capsho and CastMagick. It's really either or on those. I don't really use any AI tool. I love the Capsho team, especially. They're great people. I don't use any AI tools enough for me to want to pay any appreciable amount of money for it. But it's mostly to gather ideas and get basic wording and highlights. That said, I did manage to get a pretty clean blog post from Capsho for one of my videos. So interesting to see how that works out in the future. So from the 3 videos, I got 3 videos, 3 podcast episodes, and then a blog post for one of those, right? Because that was a lot cleaner than the other one. And I thought it would make a good blog post. Now, the live stream works a little bit differently. I still use Ecamm Live, and this time I'm streaming to YouTube, Twitch, and LinkedIn. Now, I used to stream to Twitter/X as well, but they decided to paywall that, and I don't feel like paying money for Twitter anymore. So I do stream to those 3 places. When the stream is over, because everything is recorded locally in Ecamm Live, I simply upload the audio to my Podcast Workflows live podcast on RSS.com. And the the main reason I chose RSS.com for this show specifically is for their support of the live item tag, or the lit tag. Once I set that up properly, I'll be able to stream directly to RSS.com without the extra step of uploading it. And that was very appealing to me. So soon it won't even be any extra steps. I'll be able to stream to YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, and podcast players that support live all in one felled swoop. So that's amazing. But that's really it. That's the whole walkthrough. With the combination of excellent tools and a little bit of repurposing, I was able to create 9+ quality pieces of content. They all went out while I was on vacation. So this is really, I have a good workflow in place for this. If you want to learn more about that workflow, you can join my mailing list over at podcastworkflows.com/join. There'll be a link in the description for this episode as well. But I'm going to be diving a lot more into these kind of workflows and how each of these tools work. So I do advise hiring an editor, but I have really good equipment and I need to just do a few things of cleanup when I do a solo episode like this, right? For my interviews, especially, I still have an editor and he does all the cutting and fun stuff. But, the right tools make it really easy. I wouldn't be able to easily edit without Isotope RX. Their tools are just fantastic. It was $200 for the tools I bought, and they make my job a lot easier. So the right tools, the right processes in place, and some time, right? I'm not telling you, hey, how to get 9 pieces of content in 30 minutes. No, it still takes time to make good content, but from that initial good content investment, you can get a lot of really good content out there fairly easily, right? Spend the time creating and then have the right process in place to get it to all the right places. Okay, that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for listening. Check out the links in the description. Be sure to join my mailing list over at podcastworkflows.com/join. And until next time, I'll see you out there.